Hi, friends. Pastor Ben here for week 3 of our midweek Advent devotions. Today, we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 2 and thinking about those words that Simeon prays when he sees Jesus finally in the temple. He says, "My eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the presence of all peoples." So recently, I was at a meeting. I was at a conference with a bunch of other pastors here in the area. Every month, all of the Lutheran pastors in our little area here try to get together and just sort of share stories and be with each other. We take Holy Communion and we talk about the things that we're seeing in kind of a larger way. And as you can imagine, this is a sort of a rigid or maybe a more stiff group, right? When we get together, there are different opinions and people see the scriptures and see the church slightly differently. And so, in some senses, we're happy to be together, but in other senses, we're kind of a little bit uncomfortable, maybe even nervous that we don't say the wrong thing in front of these, incredibly intelligent theologians. So we were trying to sort of say and do things that are appropriate in that setting. And like you do whenever we get uncomfortable, right? We typically look for some way to keep ourselves occupied. So when we sit in this circle, we pull out our phones or we bury our nose in a laptop and we furiously write whatever, our memoir, and we say silly jokes. Sometimes it's a little bit awkward and uncomfortable. And this meeting was exactly the same, right? And we're being served lunch. And as part of this meeting, we had folks from the Federation of Lutheran Churches, this organization, and that kind of helps to bind us together and helps our congregations reach out with new missions and new projects. And we invited them to come and tell us a little bit about what they were doing, what they were up to, and how we could help. And there was one gentleman who was part of the group. He's a chaplain. He's a pastor at a hospital in downtown Cincinnati. And this guy has really had, as you can imagine, a really long year and a half with the pandemic. And obviously being a chaplain in a hospital setting presents its own challenges, but in particular, the last year has been particularly hard. And this gentleman, you could just see it, you could see it on his face, the wear and tear. And when he started talking, he really started speaking from the heart. And he was passionately telling us about how he felt like the churches in this area, and specifically us in the circle, had not supported the Federation, how he didn't feel supported. And his face started to get red, and he started to kind of fight back tears. You could tell this was really emotional and meaningful for him, and he started to kind of stutter over his words, and I gotta tell you, it was incredible, because I looked around the circle and everyone had put their phones down or shut their laptop, and they were like leaning forward to really hear what this man had to say. And even though it was kind of uncomfortable, the word that came to my mind was sacred. Because sacred is when we give reverence or we give weight to something, something that seems ordinary, right? And we do this. We sort of set something apart so that we don't forget it. And it was incredible to me that at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday in December, sitting in a stark conference room, there was this man who was just pouring out his heart, and suddenly, the extraordinary crashed into the ordinary, and that moment became sacred for us. And I have a feeling that we're going to be talking about that time that Ron came in and really shared his heart for a long time, and I hope that we do. And it made me think about how we remember how we retell the stories of things that are sacred in our life. You know, especially around the holidays, there's no shortage of retelling of the Christmas story or art that depicts the birth of Jesus. And most of it, you know, I think out of respect, trying to really honor Mary and Joseph in that time, uh, they sort of, you know, gloss over some of the more painful parts of that story. You know, the labor that Mary must have been in, uh, the 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 mistrust of family who wouldn't find a place for them to stay in their hometown. Um, you know, some of the darker parts of the story oftentimes get glossed over, and I know we do this so that we can honor and we want to try and bring dignity to these stories, but I got to tell you, um, there is something that's lost when we do that, right? There's almost something that's unhelpful when we separate the pain and the humanness of the story from the sort of divine holiness of the moment. And so I wonder for us today, and I wonder for you today. I'm sure that this is a time of the year when you're retelling your own family stories, and you're retelling the story of Jesus in the ways that God has been so faithful and provided for you in the past. And I want to encourage you to try and be kind to the messy parts of your own story, the parts that maybe aren't so pretty. And maybe this year, when you're retelling those family stories, maybe don't gloss over those parts. Maybe don't cut out the messy part, but actually include it in an attempt to make something that is truly sacred. Uh, yeah. So, friends, as always, we have a Bible study tonight, Wednesday evening, Foundations, and we're going to be diving into a little bit more of the sacredness of Jesus's birth. And I hope that you can join us at 6:30, whether you come in person here at the church or online via Zoom. I hope to see you soon. Merry Christmas. God bless.